can sing it.
No matter what the people say, I'ma love you anyway. You're my girl, I can't let you go.
I believe this evening will one day go down in, if not Richmond history, I'm hoping that it'll go down in American history. And I hope that you'll see the reasons why after the next hour or two. We're going to open tonight with a prayer with Pastor Smith, if you would come here.
You all stand.
Pastor White did not.
But I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to the Mt Olivet Church and Life More Abundant Ministries tonight. It's a joy to have you here. I did want to just open by saying a few things. I remember I was in a pastor's reconciliation meeting. Funny to even say that that's an oxymoron in itself. To have Christians talk about reconciliation, that's really strange to me. But we've been in there for about 3 years talking about how to get in church, to understand how important it is for us as different cultures to meet together. One of the guys made a statement. He said, I've always wanted to go to one of those settings where I was, in an African-American setting by myself, but I was always afraid to go because I didn't know how it was going to be received. And I just want you to know you're safe on the hill tonight. It's all right. It's all right to smile. I said to him, I said that's strange that you say that. And let me respond to you by saying this: everybody. Let's wait till some of them get settled. I said to the pastor who said that everybody in the room where you're going knows exactly what it feels like to be in your shoes. And he looked at me strangely, and I said, not one person in that room has ever does not know what it feels like to be in a room where they're the only person. And so that person, every person in that room is going to be over where you are, shaking your hand, trying to make you feel comfortable about being present in a place that feels foreign to you. So I want all the African Americans right where you are to go greet somebody who does not look like them and say, welcome to the room. You don't look like you. Now, because we don't have time, I just want you to know that was my second wave of welcome, because I would usually have asked you all to exchange seats. So that we never get to a place where we're all coming in the room and say, well, I see somebody who looks like me, let me sit with them so I can feel comfortable. I like people to feel uncomfortable in rooms like this, because we have to get out of our regular way of doing things if we're ever going to achieve the mission that we're trying to achieve. Fear is one of the things that I think happens too much in our culture, and it's because we don't know enough about one another. So we have to overcome those things. One of the things that I want to welcome you tonight and talk about tonight for a second, when I think about that, something I had the privilege of seeing on television several months ago. A group of geneticists got together, and they put together this, just absolutely awesome presentation to talk about where every person on the planet Earth comes from. And as I watched, I remember being sleepy that night and rewinding it over and over again and watching again the next night and then the next week. As a matter of fact, it's still on my television because I never want to forget what was implanted in me that day. I started watching how they put people groups together. They took DNA from persons of every culture they could find in New York City. Now, how many of you know New York City is a great place to do that in? They began to test those persons, and what they found out was they needed to group these persons here from different parts of the country, these persons here, these persons here. When they got down to the second grouping, some of the persons in this category went over here, some from here went over here. When they came down to the very end of the testing, they brought to discovery that somebody's cell phone was ringing. They came to a discovery that every person on the planet Earth had originated from one village in Africa. Every person. That all of us had migrated to different places. Some of us, our skin color had changed, our hair color had changed based upon the environment, the cold or the warm weather that we come in. But all of us, and this is not Daryl Husband's theory, these are the geneticists, have come from one village in Africa. Guess what they called it? Eden. Genetic Adam and genetic Eve. Said something to me that we've placed so much of a premium on skin color and rather than our cultures. It's not our skin, the color of our skin, it's our cultures we need to pay attention to. We've grown up in different areas. We've grown up with different socioeconomic backgrounds. But deep down inside, we come from the same place. We're all the same family. We come from the same God. When we end this journey, there's not going to be an African American heaven, or there's not going to be a European heaven, there's not going to be an Asian heaven or Hispanic heaven. There's going to be one place. And God wants to find out how we're going to get along while we're down here. I think that ought to be an entrance fee, as a matter of fact. I recently heard a lot, and Dean Nelson is here as a pastor, as a leader in this country, about a group of called Frederick Douglass Party, Frederick Douglass Republicans, actually. And Sonia's here, she's going to talk about that later. But I thought that it was important to say something about that as we prepare this night, to talk about how important it is for us to understand our roots. And I got a video called Black and White. What's the first part of it?
Setting the record straight. Setting the record straight
in black and white. And it's a history of African Americans' participation in the Republican Party. And I thought how important it is for African Americans to see that. But I also thought about how important it is for you who are part of the Republican Party to see that. I said this to Terry when we first got together. I've been at this church 28 years. 28 years. And this is the first time that I've ever had a Republican representative in this church. Very, very first time. African Americans' values are often very conservative, even though they don't vote conservative all the time. And there's a reason for that. And what I want to share with you tonight as a part of a welcome is that it's important for you to know what those reasons are. Somebody asked me a question. They said, why is it, as a whole, African Americans voted for President Obama? And I said this to them. My father was talking to me that night, and he was so elated, the first African American president. We didn't get into politics, and we have some different views about how to vote. My father was excited about somebody of his hue finally getting an opportunity to lead the country when that's never happened before. And later on, we began to talk about some things, about values, about how I vote. I don't argue with my dad. He is my dad. Touch your neighbor and say, he is my dad. I don't argue with my dad about those things, but I shared with him some things about where I am today. And one of the things that I share quite often is that when African Americans prepare to vote, they're not just voting about their values, they're voting for people who are also familiar to them. You see, some of them ask the question, who's more likely to come to my house? Who's more likely to come to my neighborhood? Who's more likely to stop at my church and see what I think? Who's more likely to ask me what I feel about an issue, and whether I'm right or wrong, who's going to ask me what I think about it? Who's going to value my opinion? Who's going to value my intelligence? Who's going to value where I came from and how I got to where I'm going? That's important. A friend of mine said this to me, said, well, Bishop, I don't need to know, I don't really need to know you like that. We know each other as brothers in Christ. And I said, well, sir, let me just tell you something. You are my brother. But I do want to help you understand something. If you're not interested in my history, then you're not interested in me. And one of the things that I shared, I said we share the same value. We talk on the same line. We are biblically conservative. There's no question about that. But I want you to be clear about understanding how important it is to let people know that you care about them based upon where do you come from, why do you think like you think. Now, let's work together to bring our nation to a place where we communicate in the area of pro-life. That's important. Will you agree with that? We agree with that. We agree with that same-sex marriage is absolutely wrong. We agree on that. We agree that we have to stop the gay agenda from moving its way in television and everywhere else. We are absolutely agreed upon becoming fiscal conservatives. We have to find out if that's true in the African American community, that African American pastors, mostly to a man, agree about the same thing. Why is it that their voting record is different? So we have to find out, how do we get in the room to talk about that without being afraid to differ in opinion, that I'm going to be beat up. Because sometimes, I remember when Chuck Smith first came to this room right here, he was running the 3rd congressional seat, and he started talking to some African American pastors right here in this room. And I said, Chuck, you're very nervous today. And he said, I'm not nervous. I'm a Marine. So, okay, what does that mean? You are nervous. And he was nervous because sometimes the tension in the room brings that about, because there are questions that that people want to ask, that they've always wanted to ask, but they've never had the opportunity. And sometimes the volume changes, the emotions change, but nobody's angry. Everybody wants the right to be heard. Now, there are persons who represent the African American community who do not see on the same level that I see, and many of my colleagues see. We have to find a way to say something different to them. We have to find out why they believe that the motives of the people that we believe that we're voting for are not pure. We have to change that perception in some kind of way. And tonight is the first step in that. This is not a, well, thank you for your applause. This is not a gang up session. This is a gathering together of persons of like mind across cultures with the same faith, to find out how can we make Richmond different. How can we change the culture in Richmond? How can we teach Richmond how to be the America that it was born to be? I welcome you tonight. Say God bless you, and I hope that you have a great time.